Well, hello, everyone. We are so glad that you have joined us again for another week of Wednesday in the Word. We are continuing in our series of At the Table, and we have another incredible discussion available for you this week. And so we're glad that you're with us. Pastor Moore has invited another awesome pastor in the city of Indianapolis to be with us this evening as we discuss how we are to be a conscious in this community. So we're going to be talking about community impact in the midst of this pandemic. Pastor Moore, thank you for hosting this again. Can you share with us who you have invited to the table this week?
Well, thank you, my spiritual grandson. It's a blessing to have you moderate our time again tonight. And I am elated to introduce to our church family and also to Overcoming's church family, a great friend of mine, a great leader in our community. And I see that he is on a journey that I'm on, because the last time I saw him, he didn't have any gray stuff on his face. And so now so this pandemic is doing something to both of us. It's but I'm introducing to you my good friend, one who I have watched from a distance and been pastoring the Overcoming Church. Matter of fact, he's founder of this great church over on the east side. Been there 27 years.
Yes.
And been married to the same woman for 38 years.
Yes.
And just a great, as I said, a great community leader there. You're going to love his heart tonight as we talk together. And I don't hang out with too many guys. And I mean this with all sincerity, because I like to be around men of integrity. And I can say without any fear of success or contradiction, this young man is one that I enjoy being around. And he's always just and a great prayer warrior. I just want New Era to hear his heart tonight, and you're going to enjoy our time.
Awesome. Well, Pastor Farr, we are so blessed that you have joined us this evening as we talk about just an important conversation as we go through this season of COVID-19. If I can ask you a couple questions as we get started here today, this evening. Sure. What sparked your interest about this conversation of the impact of the community in the midst of this pandemic, and then also as you have led a congregation on the east side, when did you sense that COVID-19 was going to have a greater impact on our communities than first reported?
Sure. Well, one of the things that really kind of, I guess, piqued my passion or got me really stoked was the fact that when the data began to come out about, because it's just starting with just dealing with Indiana, we only make up about 10% of the population.
Yeah.
We are three times more likely to contract corona than our Caucasian counterparts.
Yeah.
And then that the dying rate is 6 times more than Caucasians. So that began to just really kind of make me want to get more involved and to begin to find out why and what are the things and issues. I would go to different establishments in the community, in our community. I saw that many times people of color, Black people, were not practicing social distancing. They were not wearing masks. We'd be in facilities and restaurants that were owned by African Americans. They were not wearing masks. So I think the thing is that I began to realize is that our mindsets tend to be that whatever's happening around us either doesn't apply to us, it won't affect us, or that's really for somebody else. So I just felt like it was important that the messaging of what's going on had to come from us, because nobody else is going to communicate to us. And I wasn't seeing the messaging really being communicated to us from people outside of us. So that's really when it began to just become a personal passion of mine and a personal desire of mine. This is to really start communicating with people the importance of this really is something serious, and it is really hitting our community at rates that is not really being communicated to us.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Pastor Mar, I'll ask you that same question of what sparked your interest about this conversation, and when did you realize COVID was a bigger beast than originally reported?
Yeah, actually, the realization of what we were facing happened in the middle of a cruise that my wife and I were taking. We had some trepidation, I think the first part of March, about going on the cruise. But we had promised our 10-year-old grandson that we would take him on a cruise for his 10th birthday. We had promised him that at 8 years old. And so we tried to cancel the cruise, but the cruise company at that time would not give our funds back. And so we went on that cruise with great trepidation. But in the middle of that cruise was when, I have to be careful how I say this, but when all hell broke loose on this pandemic. And it was on that cruise, I'm talking to your father, our executive pastor, about what we're going to do about Sunday. Should we have service or not have service? I think that was March 14th was that Sunday that was coming around. And we decided to pull the plug that Saturday night and not have services. I'm so glad we did, because we've had over 15 of our members with COVID, and then we lost one. And so I realized that this pandemic was going to be an adversary, and a formidable adversary, especially for the African American church and community.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both for that insight on why this conversation is so important for the individuals who may be watching. And so throughout this conversation, my prayer is that we do three things: inspire individuals to see that the church plays a role in how our communities move forward. I think a place people often run to when there is fear or trouble is the church. And so how is the church's role to inspire people in the midst of this pandemic? Another thing that we can do in the midst of this conversation is encourage individuals to educate themselves and know the facts for themselves regarding COVID-19 and other crises that affect especially Black and Brown communities. And then the third thing I feel that we can truly do is invite individuals to have deeper conversations pertaining to the health of our communities, which I feel is a huge component of what we're going to be talking about this evening. Before we jump into some of the questions, in Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, it says, "Bear one another's burdens, so fulfill the law of Christ." I think during this time we have had to bear a lot of each other's burdens. I know as pastors, you two are going through some hard conversations about how to reopen, about the health of members. And Pastor Moore shared this, even the death of a member. And so I think during this time, how are we bearing each other's burdens? How are we showing up in each other's lives, and even in the life of our community as we go through this time? And so maybe that scripture can be the staple of this conversation of how do we care for one another during this time of COVID-19, especially when it comes to our communities. And so with that being said, Pastor Farr, I'll start with you. With this question: where do you think the Black community is currently when it comes to truly understanding the impact of COVID-19?
That's a very, very interesting question. I think that it varies from, when you say Black community, that's an awfully broad stroke. I think in the inner cities and in the urban settings where people may not have as great access to the resources, that's a different, whole different set of circumstances and situations there. Where in that again, that if people that just don't probably think that it's going to happen to them, again, there's no sense of immediate sense of really trying to practice the necessities of being distant and keeping your hands washed and all those things. And I just think that that's just part of the nature of people that feel like it won't happen to me, or they're not trusting to the information and the message that they've been given. So it's a mixture. It's a mixture depending on where. And then even in the church sometimes, because we are very, very warm, because we're very community oriented, when we come together, we want to hug, we want to embrace. even if it's not going to be safe. So it's just about changing mindsets
Yes, sir.
that we have to really work at, continuing to hit. It is about mindsets. So
Absolutely.
we are oftentimes far behind other cultures when it comes to that immediate sense of what we need to be doing about this and the dangers of it.
Yes, sir. Pastor Moore?
Yeah, I think Pastor Farr and I were talking before we started our conversation tonight. He gave some great statistics. He was saying that we're only 10% of the population here in the great state of Indiana, but we're over 40% of the people that are dying from this COVID-19. And yeah, we know all of the other extenuating circumstances or aggravating circumstances that our people, because we have a lot of people doing certain service jobs. They can't stay at home like many of us could or can because they have some health disparities.
Yep.
And all those things are multiplied against them, poverty, but also, as Pastor said, a lack of seeing this as a very serious issue. And so I think that I was talking to a Marion County official just a few minutes ago, and our church and Overcoming Church are both in two of the hottest COVID rising rates in the state of Indiana. And so I think that's why our mayor is a little more cautious than the governor may be when it comes to reopening Marion County. And so, yeah, we have a lot of education to bring forth in our community if they would listen to us.
Right.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Pastor Moore, to kind of piggyback on that, how do you think COVID-19 has shaped the way that churches are now going to have to play a role when it comes to outreach? Is there an education piece that now needs to be added into when it comes to churches doing outreach on, our health, the things that we just need to practice to be able to protect our health?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Pastor. I'm glad you jumped in there because I tell you, this man here is doing it. He's not just talking about it. He's doing it.
Yes, sir. Pastor Farr?
Well, I think that we as pastors, we're going to have to first realize, we're going to have to begin to think differently. We're going to have to really begin to start having a different approach and mindset, because many of us are just waiting to try to go back to normal. And I don't really know if normal, we need to be thinking a new normal and not the old normal. A lot of people were not open to doing services online. We started the process of trying to be online last year. And a lot of people, the pushback we were getting was from traditional people go to churches. Well, if it's easy, if people can just watch online, they won't come to church. But guess what? They can't come to church now. So
that's right.
And that was my whole premise was you got to reach people where they are, and people that don't want to come aren't going to come anyway. But we have to find ways to reach people where they are, and then provide avenues to bring them from that being content to watch to being connected. Same way with doing how we reach the community with outreach now. We're still doing food pantry. We've upped our food pantry in terms of giving to people. And so when people come now, we have to have them either sit in the car or we bring it out to them and set it out, or open the trunk. So our outreach efforts, we're still having to reach people, but we're just, even with how we touch people with outreach, we're having to make sure that we're still practicing distancing, but we can still address and meet needs through that avenues of putting it in the car and letting them keep going.
Absolutely. And speaking of community, Pastor Moore, at New Era, the mission statement includes that New Era is a conscious in the community. So how has New Era had to live out that mission statement, maybe in a different way in this season of COVID-19?
Yeah, I've tried to make myself available to media outlets when they're looking. I'm considered now one of the older pastors in the community, and so as a result of that, Seasoned, that's a better word. Yes, yeah. Seasoned pastors. And so I have a privilege to sometimes speak into issues, and as a result of my time of being a pastor and being a leader in the community, I would like to say that the fourth prong of our mission statement is to be a conscience in the community. Of course, minister to those in need. But this new reality, this we're navigating what we call the valley of the virus. It's causing us to take the gospel to where all of our young people and most people are hanging out, and they're hanging out on this.
Mm-hmm.
So as Pastor Bruce said, as you know, I think about 5 years ago, we started our online presence, but it was very liminal. I mean, we didn't do a lot of investment in it, but now this is where people hang out.
Yeah.
And now I'm sure Pastor Farr is saying the same thing. We are reaching thousands of people that we would not come through our doors through online now. So God is using, he's kind of recalibrated us to go to where the people are, instead of expecting them to come to us. Now we can go to where they're hanging out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not just locally, but all over the country,
all over the world,
and all over the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
One of the things that I thought, and if I could just add on to that, it's kind of like when Paul wanted to go to Rome and preach, and the moment he got to Rome, he got arrested. So he was tied to a prisoner. He didn't get to preach on a platform in the synagogues, but every time he was tied to a Roman soldier, he would preach Christ to him for the entire time. He was chained to that Roman soldier, and that Roman soldier would give his life to Christ. And then when the next one would come along, Paul would start preaching right to that soldier again. So those guys would give their life to Christ, then go home to their families. And the gospel, he said, this happened for the furtherance of the gospel. My chains have allowed me to advance the gospel in a way that I never could any other platform. So COVID has put chains on us that has allowed the gospel to be advanced in ways that we probably couldn't have done it on our traditional platforms.
Yeah.
Amen. Can I add to that? That's a great illustration about Paul, because how did we get Ephesians and Philippians and all those letters? We got them because God made Paul be still in a prison cell. And so now he documented a lot of his theological thinking. And here we are living by those principles each and every day of our lives. And so, God can take persecution and a pandemic and use it for the furtherance of the gospel. He's such an amazing God.
Yes, he is.
Yes. Yeah. I don't, have y'all seen my caption that a friend sent it to me, where the devil is talking to God, and the devil says to God, I shut down your churches. And then God says to the devil, not really, because now I have one in every home. So
I like that. I love it.
He says, so you didn't shut it down, buddy. We're doing it a little different way than what you thought we were doing. So absolutely.
Pastor Farr, with you pastoring on the East Side and dealing with the everyday challenges with those in that community, through this COVID-19 season, have you seen any changes from what the needs were previous to this season to where they are now? And how are you addressing, those needs as they drastically change from day to day?
Sure. Like I said before, the need for food, the need to access for food, we're in a food desert. So we've tried to make food available and accessible to families. And we partner and collaborate with social service agencies. A lot of times they come. We've also now began to start doing mask giveaways. And we're partnering with Live Free, actually, to give away masks actually next week as well. But our desire is to just start making available the things that people in our community may not have easy access to or know how to be innovative with, say, cutting up a sock or whatever. But we wanted to try to make sure that we were able to get the things that were at least hand sanitizers and things like that to them, as well as the food needs there. So we've just been trying to really be intentional with those two things. Yeah.
I think that we haven't opened our food pantry back up at New Era, what we decided to do would be to support gleaners and food bank and also Willow Mission. And so through our offerings and gifts, we've been able to help feed a lot of people in this pandemic. But Pastor Farr and I both know that as this thing progresses, as unemployment continues to progress, we're going to have a double whammy here. Members are going to be getting laid off, and they're going to need our assistance. And so we're going to be receiving a little less in, but we're going to be asking for more out. And we've got to find a way to navigate that. And but I do think this pandemic, especially our lower income members, the first, the last to be hired and the first to be fired. I really think we're going to get the African American community is going to get a really big brunt from this as the weeks progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you two are experts of giving analogies in the pulpit just to be able to encourage individuals.
I borrow a lot from him. Just
I'm gonna do my best to attempt one. And so for many individuals, it's easy to go to the mall and buy new clothes for a desired look that they have. But oftentimes there's something in the closet that they can make work. So more often we go to the mall for desire instead of necessity. And so with that being said, how do we get people to see that, especially during times like this in the community, that the church is a beacon of hope through the desire instead of need? Oftentimes the first place people run to when there is trouble, when there is hurt, it's a church, which is great. But how can we flip that to see, for individuals to see, even in times like this, you should desire to want to be inside the church for the community, for the gatherings, for the love that happens on a weekly and daily basis. So Pastor Moore, I'll let you take the first shot at that. How do we start to change that mindset around for individuals?
Yeah, and I think the pandemic has helped us. I think that the crisis that we're in now, where most things that people thought they could depend on has been nullified in their lives. And so I think it's tilling some hardened hearts. I think the soil is being tilled because now they realize the uncertainty that they are trying to navigate. And so that's why I think Overcoming Church and New Era Church and most churches in our community are beginning to see more people popping in on our online services, trying to get some kind of inspiration in the midst of their desperation. As you notice, I've been preaching a series on unshakable joy. I think people have lost their joy when you depend on the things of this world. And so that's where the church comes in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's Farr.
Yeah, just to continue to add to what Pastor Moore just said, personal and public tragedies always have a way of causing people's a shift in how people see the church, especially unchurched. When people are in need, when people are experiencing tragedies and hardship, they tend to interpret faith through their needs being met. So it's in times of, when people are doing well, the church is irrelevant. When hardships happen, we tend to become necessary again. And so when our needs are met, when our deeds meet the needs of people who are hurting, that's how they interpret faith, is when somebody was there for me when I was going through. And there are some religions who wait for tragedies to happen. That's when they shine the greatest. And so I think this is an opportunity for us, even as the church, is to look for issues and needs and how we can just meet and address a need. I'll share it with Pastor Moore. I had a chance to do a mission trip to Togo, West Africa, and I was asking them, what is the fastest growing religions in Togo? And they said Catholicism and Islam. And I said, why? And they said, because when Catholics and Muslims come into a village, they don't throw up a tent to do a revival. They build hospitals and schools, and people interpret that as faith. So that always resonated with me, is when you meet needs of people, they interpret that. That's how faith gets interpreted when people are in need.
Amen. And they should know that we are Christians by our love and
Yep.
the demonstration of that love. That is
Yep.
so true. That's a great point. I know we find a lot of how should I say this, suspicious cars on our lots here lately, and we finding out they're using our internet. And so that's another service. I know that that a lot of people just don't have any internet service, and so now we've been a little bit more open to people sitting on our lots, because that's all they're trying to get, the internet.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing, those small tools that oftentimes churches may not even think of. They're being beneficial to the community. And so something as simple as riding up to the parking lot and using Wi-Fi is blessing someone. And so that may be the start to someone's relationship with Christ through
Absolutely.
Wi-Fi. And so it's just amazing when the church does make that impact in the community, what can happen. So it's been an incredible conversation. We'll close with this question. And you, Pastor, I think it's dynamic that we have a pastor who pastors on the west side and a pastor who pastors on the east side. But both have their highs and lows of the community, but love the communities that they pastor in. And so we'll start with the east side. Pastor Farr, if you were talking to the east siders of Indy right now, what would you say to encourage them in this season, just to sustain, their strength, to lead them away from fear, even though fear is something that, we feel, but how can we invite Christ in the midst of that fear into their lives to encourage them in the season?
Sure. I think the first thing is to make ourselves available, to really genuinely let people know that you care. Learning how to be intentional in being, to connect with people. Bringing dignity. When we go out and do our faith walks, we don't go out like we're coming to save you. We come out, we're coming to come alongside you. One of the things that most impressed me about Jesus is he always gave dignity to the broken and the down and out. He never made people who were cast aside feel like they were that way. He always came and restored dignity. So we try, when we go out, when we connect with people, and it's a different mindset, because you got to reach people where they are. When people are broken and hurting, they're going to be who they are. And so when you can reach people and just basically give them dignity, hey, I'm coming to come alongside you. I want to walk with you. I want to learn from you. I learn more when we go out and we connect with people. I learn more than I actually to give out. I take in more. So I think it's starting by saying we want to come and we want to learn, and we want to be intentional with having relationships with people. Then we earn the right to share faith, I think. And I think it's just really starting from that perspective of we're coming out here and we're trying to move alongside these and navigate through these same waters as you. But how can we do it together?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's more to the West Siders in the New Era area. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think that being transparent. I think allowing people to see your vulnerabilities and some of your fears, and some of your anxiety in this moment, this place we've never been before, and to be able. I was on a Zoom call with about 15 pastors the other day, and the whole conversation was supposed to be about when we might reopen, but we began to sense that there were some pastors that were really depressed. There were some guys really struggling with this. I mean, actually in tears. And we had to pause and start talking about, okay, where can we help these pastors get some help for their mental health? So I think one of the things that I'm trying to do, as you know, we're having mental health conversations, Zoom calls, Zoom conversations for our congregation. I think people need to realize that if you need mental health, if you need to talk to somebody to get your mind in the right space, it's okay to do that. But I think when they hear their pastor say, "Hey, I got some anxiety here too. Yeah. Hey, hey, I want to see my grandkids and I can't hold my grandkids right now, right? Yeah. And I don't know when I'm gonna be able to do that." And that's all of us are in this space that we've got to navigate, but we got to remind people that we're only traveling through this valley.
Yeah.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I won't fear any evil, because God is with me. And whether I'm east side or west side, north side or south side, God saw this pandemic coming.
Yeah.
And he knows when it's going to leave. We just got to trust him along the way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Pastor Moore, you said vulnerability of just pastors. I think you two have exemplified that tonight in a perfect way of not only being just pastors, but being two men of God who are trying to go in this season for you and your families, but also as pastors for the congregations that you lead. And so we thank you for inviting us in tonight as we just hear your heart, hear where our churches are, hear where our communities are, and hear maybe something that we can do to step up in the midst of this pandemic to be there for someone else. And so I appreciate both of you and the wisdom that you've shared tonight. And I pray that this wisdom goes into our hearts, into our minds, and allows us to see ourselves and the other individuals that we interact with in a different way, just to glorify God as we continue to move forward in this season of COVID-19 and beyond. And so with that being said, Pastor Farr, can you pray for us tonight, especially for our community and those who may be struggling in this season, and those who may not, as you said earlier, have access to the information or access to those resources to be able to have help. And so our community, our pastors, and our churches.
Sure.
Thank you.
Father, we thank you that you're the God of our comfort, and you comfort us in the places that we're uncomfortable.
Amen.
So that we can then in turn help comfort someone else. So we pray now, God, that you will use our discomfort, you will use our pain, you will use the things that we're going through so that we can walk alongside someone else. So you comfort us by coming alongside us, because that's what a comforter does. A comforter comes alongside and is present. So we thank you for the God who is present in all of our situations right now.
Yes.
You teach us then how to be present with others who are hurting. Sometimes they don't need fantastic words. Sometimes they don't need demonstrations of power. They just need presence. And so, God, we ask now that you would be present with us so that then we can in turn be present with others and teach us the real value of community, which is simply being present. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you again, Pastor Moore, for hosting this tonight.
Yes.
This was a conversation. To you, Pastor Farr, for joining us. This has been an incredible time in Wednesday Word as we continue our series at the table. We thank you for tuning in tonight. Pastor Moore will be live tonight, Facebook Live, 9 p.m. Join us during that time as well. God bless you. See you next week.
God bless you.
God bless you.